It is 6 o'clock, and I will call this June 27th, 2022 meeting of the Chelmsford Select Board to order. Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all. Okay, so first up, we have our public service announcements. Let's start with July 4th, Ken.
Sure. So the town of Chelmsford.
Oops, looks like we've got somebody here.
Oh,
I got you, Ken.
thank you.
Hello, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. Jeff Hardy, Chairman, Chelmsford Parade Committee. We're back. First, I want to thank my other committee members who have been working tirelessly this spring, trying to get caught up and, with the interruption with the COVID and whatnot. Lynn and Chuck Marcella, Brian and Karen Reedy, Debbie Hayward, Rick Romano over at Charles Frederick, Candy Chase, as well as Paul and Jennifer Hardy, with huge contributions from Eric Lindstead, who is planning a concert on Saturday, July 2nd, and Paige Gillette over at Red Mill Graphics, as well as Shannon and Cullen and Associates taking care of all our accounting stuff. And I also want to mention the Chelmsford Police, the Fire Department, and the facilities who've been helping me with Bareness for weeks. And I met with telemedia facilities and the Highway Department and the Police Department at right around 1 o'clock today, and we pretty much have everything ready to go.
Great.
Our sponsors this year, we were fortunate, a lot of people have stepped up. Enterprise Bank, Blake Chelmsford Funeral Home, Dolan Funeral Home, Lo-Fi Bank, the Chelmsford Business Association, Charlie Parley Farms, South Chelmsford, Hannaford Supermarkets, Waddington North America, Brian Boyle Electric, and Todd Seaman over at Allstate in Drum Hill. This year's parade marshal is Charlie Zaire. For those of you who are not familiar with Charlie and what he's meant to this town, I'll just give you a little bit of a bio on him. Charlie stayed with his parents and his brother in Lowell until the property in Chelmsford, which became their homestead, became available in 1910. The parcel was about 49 acres, were primarily fruit trees grown until the town took a large part to build the McCarthy School. Charlie is the youngest of 11. Only Charlie and his brother, Maderick, remain. Charlie served in the Army as an infantryman from 1952 to 1954. He was stationed most of that time in Germany and observed many of Hitler's tunnel networks and concrete bunkers in that region. 5 of Charlie's brothers served in World War II. Fortunately, they all returned safely. A commemorative marker honoring their service is located at the McCarthy School. Charlie still works installing sewer and water lines to homes in Chelmsford and surrounding communities. He has 2 sons, 4 grandchildren who all live in town. He has been married to his wife Claudia since 1985. He stays active in family farming, including in plow days in spring and fall to help prepare the fields for the crops. And he's provided the parade committee with tractors every year, which is always, I thought, is a great way to finish it off. Our hometown hero this year is Savannah Goodin. You probably heard about Savannah's heroics at the Walmart a few weeks ago. One of her co-workers collapsed and she performed CPR to save his life. So we thought it'd be nice if we could give her a little recognition for that. We've got a full weekend of events. Saturday night we have a concert on the Common, X-Tine and the X-Teens, which features Paul Ortolano, who is a Chelmsford resident, and we're going to have a few food trucks. It's not going to be the extent of the July 3rd activities, but it's free to anybody who wants to come down. Come down and have a good time with us. And then, of course, on July 3rd, the county fair is back. And on the 4th, we have the road race once again. And then we're always looking for volunteers on parade day. If you want to come down and help us carry a banner and be involved in the parade, just send me an email at chelmsfordparade@aol.com. We're always looking for volunteers to be on the committee. I'm pretty positive that Lynn and I are not going to do this for another 11 years. Any questions?
Oh, thank you, Jeff, and thank you to all the committee for everything they've done.
Thanks for the opportunity. It really is an honor to keep this tradition going. The more I talk to people about it, the more, oh, I remember when I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. I was a kid too, watching the parade, and I brought my daughter when she was young, and now my grandchildren come, which is, for me, is fantastic.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Hope to see you all in court.
Okay, Ken?
All right, so for our second notice tonight, the Town of Chelmsford, for the Fall 2022 Annual Town Meeting, the Town of Chelmsford will convene the 2022 Fall Town Meeting on Monday, October 17th. Articles to be included on the warrant must be submitted to the office of the Town Manager here at 50 Billerica Road prior to 4 p.m. on Monday, August 1st, 2022. Petitioned articles must carry the signature of at least 10 voters. For more information, please contact the Town Manager's office at 978-250-5202.
Okay.
Our next one, we have the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum for the 14th Middlesex State Representative Primary Race. So this will be held on June 30th at 7 p.m. at the Chelmsford High School Performing Arts Center. These are for people in precincts 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in Chelmsford here. And this is for the 14th Middlesex State Representative race. So there's an open seat this year due to Tammy Guave moving on to run for Lieutenant Governor. And for that, we'll have 4 candidates there to, talk about why they're running.
Thank you. Our next announcement is a follow-up from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for the Juneteenth celebration, and I see we have Carly Connor and Sharice Lattimore in the Zoom room. Would one of you or both of you like to speak?
Yes, thank you so much, Select Board, for allowing Carly and myself this opportunity to just share with you what happened on the Common this past Saturday to celebrate Juneteenth, as you know, which is a celebration of freedom. And as you know, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, but it wasn't until 2 years later that other enslaved people realized that they were actually free. And I love what Fannie Lou Hamer said, is that no one's free until everyone's free. And so the Common on last Saturday displayed just that, a day of celebration, a day of jubilee, where we all came together and just had a great time dancing, children running around, activities. It's what you would want to see if you were passing through town and looking at a Common where everybody's coming together to share, to have fun. And I want to thank my Juneteenth working group, which consists of Carly, Latasha Dixon, Rachel Donovan, and myself. And we wanted to take this opportunity to first and foremost show some gratitude to the Chelmsford Police Department, the Chelmsford Fire Department, the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, CCA, Susan Gates and Lexi Lattimore, our town manager, Paul Cohen, Pat Wojcik, who we were so grateful and appreciative of her as our point representative of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to read the Land Proclamation Acknowledgement. We want to thank First Parish Church, Central Congregational Church, Journey Church on the Common, the Chelmsford Public Library, Access Communications, Carrie Sutherland and Jeff Ream, because we know it does take a whole lot of people to make these things the success that it was. We had over 300 peer participants, visitors, and volunteers come out on the Common, and we had a grand time. It was such a celebration, such a joyous time, and such a light in light of such chaos in our country. So we're just so grateful and thankful for all the support we received. And Carly's going to speak on some of the other people of gratitude that we just have to give a shout out to. Thank you so much again, Select Board, for allowing us this opportunity.
Thank you, Sharice.
Thanks, Sharice. I want to thank the Select Board for also posting our Juneteenth event in advance. I think that went to the growth in the number of people who attended this year. I think last year we had maybe 200 people, so it was quite a big jump from last year, and it just seems to get better and better. With regard to gratitude, I have to thank our DEI community, Chelmsford Telemedia, Greater Lowell Community Foundation, Chelmsford Town offices and their IT staff, the Chelmsford Farmers Market, the food vendors and the artists, our keynote speaker, Raquel Majeski, the DPW facilities, Lowell Sun, our volunteers, and most of all, the community. I want to thank them for joining us in this celebration, because without them, it wouldn't have been much of a celebration. I also want to add that I had someone who approached us after the event, a recent immigrant to the United States, and she said to us that this was the first time she felt like she was part of the community. And this is why we do what we do. We want everyone to feel included in this community, and so we'll continue to put on events like this, and we look forward to everyone's support in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carly and Charisse.
Thank you.
And thank you for the committee for organizing the event. So next up, we have beach closure guidelines. Before Ken reads this, I will just add that the health department wishes to convey that they're going to be doing weekly E. coli testing on both beaches starting this week.
So this is a public service announcement, just to explain the guidelines when there's a beach closure in town. So during the permitted beach season, which runs from June to August each year, Hart Pond or Freedman Lake may be closed by the Chelmsford Health Department for the following 4 reasons. If there's no lifeguard on duty, if the water is exceeding levels of E. coli, if there's a harmful algae bloom going on, if there's exceeding levels of animal feces in the water, and actually there's one more, the dangerous wading conditions due to excessive weeds. If you have any interest or questions about, how they arrived and the reasoning behind this, you can go to the Chelmsford Health Department's website, and if you just Google Chelmsford Mass Health Department, the top link, click on it, and it's one of the top items there. It talks about why the closures are needed for those 5 reasons.
Thank you, Ken.
And then the last public service announcement is just letting people know, the public know, that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number will be changing to 988 starting July 16th. Again, that's 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Thank you. And next up, we have public input. Is there anyone who would like to speak during public input? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone in the Zoom room or this room, so we'll move on to committee vacancies.
So committee vacancies as of June 27th, 2022, the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. Capital Planning Committee is looking to fill 1 1-year term. The CCA has 1 seat available. It's a 1-year term. The Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee has 1 1-year term. Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. The Commissions on Disabilities is looking to fill 1 seat. It's a 3-year term. The Community Action Program Committee has 4 1-year terms. Community Preservation Fund Committee has 1 3-year term. Council on Aging has 8 total seats available. 3 are 3-year terms and 5 are associate member positions, and those are staggered in 3-year terms, ending each June 30th of 22, 23, and 24. The Cultural Council has 2 unexpired 3-year terms and 1 3-year term. Economic Development Commission has 1 3-year term. Historic Commission is looking to fill 1 seat. That's a 3-year term. Holiday Decorating Commission is looking to fill 2 1-year terms. The Parade Committee, all applicants are welcome to apply. That expires each July 31st each year. Permanent Building Committee has 2 seats available. Those are 3-year terms. Recycling Committee is a 1-1-year term. Roberts Field Advisory Committee is a 1-year term. And the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee has 1 seat available. That's a 1-year term. If any of these boards sound of interest to you and you'd like more information or you want to apply, you can reach out to the town manager's office here at 50 Billerica Road. You can email the town manager at tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov, call the office at 978-250-5202, or if you think you just want to go ahead and do it, you can apply online, and that's on the town website.
Thank you, Ken. So next up, we have public hearings. Our first public hearing is a wine and malt beverages restaurant license for Jala Enterprises doing business as Eggmania. Do we have anyone here from Eggmania?
Someone has their hand up on the Zoom.
I think there's someone in the Zoom room.
I only had my hand up because the previous thing you talked about, the vacancies, it was on my understanding that there was a vacancy in the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And I applied to that, and I
that's-
was told to come to this meeting.
Yes, Milo, that's an agenda item later on in the agenda. So hang
apologize, I
tight.
did
Thank
not
you. No
interrupt.
worries. Okay, so who do we have here from Eggmania?
I'm Sagar. I'm from Eggmania.
Hi,
And I
Sam.
have my partner here too, Ketal and Umesh. Hello, everyone.
I'm sorry, could you say your first and last names for the record again?
Yes, my first name is Sagar and last name is Shah.
Okay. And your partner is who?
Ketal Patel.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say to the board before we ask questions about what you're trying to do?
No.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I know usually when we get an application like this, the police chief does a query check on the applicants, and I noticed there was none for this application.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
This one and the next one.
I'm sorry, Pat, I'm having a hard time hearing you. There's no query check?
No query on this one or the
Correct.
next one, she said.
Yeah, for both public hearings. It was for the CVL, but not for these.
Yeah, okay. That one's to be continued for 2 weeks, right? Yeah, okay, so I'll follow up on that. Okay.
Because there's a lot pending on this one, too.
Is what?
I think there's a lot pending on
We
this
did
one.
query check on us. We filled up the form from the state and we submitted everything for the
Right.
query check.
Right, but our police chief usually follows up and sends a report back, telling us what, if anything, he found. And if there's nothing, then he'll tell us that.
Yeah, it should be nothing because we just had a query check a few months back. We work in Hanscom Air Force Base and we had a query check like a couple of months ago too.
On page, I think it was page 1, there were a lot of pending items.
Yeah, there was 4.
Did we receive the green receipts yet, Paul?
No, I
The
have
green
not.
abutter? Do you guys have the green abutter receipts to turn in?
We submitted the white receipt, the mailing receipt.
You're gonna have to speak up a little. Say again?
We submitted the white receipt. We haven't got any green receipt yet.
Okay. That's a requirement, Paul?
Right. Hopefully typically these hearings are continued, so
Right.
hopefully by then we'll have the green ones. I don't know if there's delays in the
Okay.
certified mail process with today's delivery activities.
So,
Does anybody have any other questions? Because I have a couple. Go ahead.
no, my only comment follows up on yours. I mean, there, as of what I'm seeing in the packet, there are 4 outstanding items, so if you want me to make a motion, I'll go ahead and make a motion, because I don't think we can
Oh,
approve
it's
it
public
tonight.
hearing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, but I was going to close the public hearing.
So-
If nobody's, you're right, go ahead.
Let's finish board questions. Are there any board? Okay, so on page 7 with the conditions from the fire department, are you guys okay with that?
Yes, we are all set with the fire department.
Well, are they all set, or does Gary, Chief Ryan, have to close on this, Paul?
I don't know. I'll follow up.
Okay.
No, I already talked with the chief and he came last week and we are all set with the fire department.
Okay, I'm just asking because that's not what's reflected in the paperwork, which was dated back to June 1st.
No issues with the building department, no issues.
Um,
Health department.
And then so page 20, I'm sorry, are you saying something, George?
Is this right here by the fire department, Gary Ryan, is that what you were looking for?
Yes. I'm asking if they have any problems with what
Oh, I'm
the fire
sorry.
department asked for, and they said they've closed already.
How long have you been at this address?
1 year. So we opened last June of 2021.
Thank you.
And does the graphic layout on page 27 does that represent what you currently have, or does that represent changes to your layout and the number of seats?
So the only thing we changed was the middle two table. We
Okay.
didn't have it last year due to COVID.
Yep.
But this year the building department came and we had enough space, so Mr. Jose from building department approved that.
Okay. Okay, so this is a public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Okay, seeing none.
You may also note that the hours are expanding as well, which is
Sundays.
not an issue of this because it's an advertised hearing, but just point out for the boards, that if you look at their existing common victual license versus this license, they will be expanding their hours as well.
No, sir, we did not expand our hours. It's, so we asked for, requested for more hours
Right,
before.
that's all,
But
that's,
we, okay.
that's all I'm
yes.
pointing out. That's all I'm pointing out, is you requested additional hours beyond what's on your current license.
I'm sorry, Paul, I'm not tracking you. They're
It-
extended hours beyond what's on the current
Right,
license?
in other
or
words,
we
right
are-
now, they have a common victual license.
Right,
The hours on the common victual license, which is in your packet,
yeah,
are less than what they're requesting. And there's nothing wrong with that, because this is a separate application for a liquor license, for where wine and malt beverages, which also would include a common victual license. But if you approve this license request, you'll also be expanding the expanded, approving the
It was
expanded
just
hours.
Sunday expanded, right?
Yeah. No, so what happened was we, last year when we opened the restaurant, we requested for more hours, but due to COVID, we close at 9 on weekdays, and on Friday, Saturday, we close at 10. But we had it more hours just in case in future, if you want to extend it, we can use it. But right now, we are keeping the same hours what we have. So yes, in the request, it shows till 11, but we close at 10. Even on Sunday and Monday to Thursday, we close at 9 instead of 9:30.
okay.
Given a number of pending things, I would suggest that we stick with our policy of the 2-week delay on this license, not just close the
Yeah,
public
close
hearing
by.
today,
That's fine.
to continue it, yes.
We good with that?
Yeah, did you hear that? I don't know, for some reason your mic isn't
So-
picking up.
Yeah, no, so what is the open list? Only green receipts are left, right? Apart from that, we submitted everything.
Yeah, we need closure from the fire department, and we need the independent query check from the police department, and whatever other pending items were listed in there, just verification that they're closed. And that includes the green abutter receipts as well. And it's our basic policy for liquor licenses to extend the public hearing for 2 meetings, so that's the motion that we're going to take today to our next meeting, which is
July 11th.
July 11th. Okay?
Okay,
So I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to July 11th.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. So we'll continue this July 11th, and hopefully we'll close it out then.
okay. Sir.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have the public hearing for the transfer of stock and change of officers on the wine and malt beverages for Jimmy's Pizza.
Yes.
We just need your names and
Yeah.
addresses.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Attorney Tom Truax of Salem. I'm appearing on behalf of the licensee, Maramine Inc. With me is John Gerges. He's the proposed license manager, and with him is his other partner, Artie Desai. As I said, we are appearing on behalf of the licensee, Maramine Inc. This is a change of stockholders, a change of officers and directors, and also a change of manager. Mr. Gerges is the proposed new president, secretary, director, and 50% shareholder, and as well as the proposed license manager. Mr. Desai is the new director, along with Mr. Gerges, and also a 50% shareholder. There will be no changes to the layout. The only change that was presented to the board is a change of hours on Sunday. They are seeking a 11 o'clock start on Sundays instead of the current 12 noon start. In terms of experience, Mr. Gerges comes before you with over 8 years of experience in the restaurant alcohol service industry. From 2019 to 2021, he owned Yvonne Inc., which was doing business at Pizza Palace in Ashland, which served beer and wine. He was the license manager for those 2 years, and there were no violations. Before that, from 2011 to 2018, he owned D&P Enterprises, Inc., which is doing business as Pizza Mia and Billerica. And for the last 5 years of his ownership, which was from 2013 to 2018, they secured a full-service restaurant all-alcoholic beverages license. So he was obviously intimately involved with the service of beer and wine as well as all alcoholic beverages at that full-service restaurant, and there were no violations during that time as well. Now, Mr. Desai worked with Mr. Gerges at the Billerica restaurant. He was there, I think he even started before Mr. Gerges owned the restaurant. He worked there from 2010 to 2018, and obviously during those 5 years, he was the manager there while they were serving they had the full alcoholic beverages license. So they both come before you with a lot of experience under their belt. Mr. Gerges is tip certified. Mr. Desai didn't renew his tip certification when he left Pizza Mia, but he will be take care of and have a tip certification in hand before the license is approved by this board. All in all, I expect this to be a pretty seamless transaction, and the restaurant should be in good hands under these new owners. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah, I just had the same issue that we haven't heard from the police chief about the Cory check on this one.
That one wasn't in there? Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there any comments or questions from the public? Okay, seeing none. Would this be the standard 2-week?
With an existing license?
Yes,
It's an
it is.
existing
Liquor
license.
So I think the 2 weeks has really been on a new
Or for
location
new
with
ones.
license. Yeah.
But we
We
don't
can
have a
do, we can do it
Well, you
contingent
could
on
do
the
a
Cory
contingent upon
check.
satisfactory Cory check by the police chief.
I don't have a
That'd be
problem
acceptable.
with that for an existing license. Mark, George, do you have any,
No,
what does shaking your head mean?
No, it's fine. There's a couple of pending things with the workman's comp and insurance certificate, but
I mean, my feeling is we're going to be going over holiday anyways. And if you do delay it 2 weeks, is it really throw it off that much to close out the Cory check? I'm nervous about not I have any doubt that they'll pass, but, I want to see a Cory check.
Okay.
I mean, just for your information, obviously, they ran a Cory check on them when he had to do the manager in 2019 to 2021. And obviously, as you all know, the ABCC does their own Cory checks as well, so.
Does that make you feel any more comfortable?
It's the same standard.
Yeah, it's the same standard, yeah, but it's the same standard too on our policy. I mean, we do have a policy, and it seems we use every excuse to waive it, and I just don't think we should be doing that.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing until July 11th.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, we'll see you July 11th, and we'll wrap it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Paul, you'll follow up on
Yes,
that
I
Cory
will.
check
Yep.
also. Okay, next up, we have the license for the transfer of the common vigilar license for Brothers Pizza. Do we have anybody here? Hello.
Hi, how we doing?
We just need your name and address for the record.
My first name is Romani, last name is Shinoda. Address is 17 Kenmar Drive, Unit
Okay.
17.
Any questions from the board? Do you want to say anything about what you're trying to do here?
So we seeking for to better food and better service. You're gonna see it with us in our restaurant.
Does the graphic on page 5, which I put up on the screen there, does that represent any change from?
No, we're
Current?
gonna keep it as is right now. Maybe for this year to see what's gonna happen, but we're looking to remodeling everything inside. Maybe next year.
Any other questions or? Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the common vigilar license from St. Anub and St. Mina DBA Brothers Pizza to St. Augustine Inc., DBA Brothers Pizza, located at 7 Summer Street, Suite 26, here in Chelmsford.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Good luck, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Paul, we're at reports and presentations.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Our first on the agenda is Finance Director John Souza. He's here to provide a report on our bond rating report from Standard & Poor's, the June 21st $7.055 million bond sale, and then he has another matter regarding the sale of a 32,000 square foot parcel of tax possession land off of Summer Street that was authorized at the spring annual town meeting. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Town Manager Cohen. Last week on June 21st, we issued municipal bonds to finance a number of capital improvements in town. And one of the steps in the process requires that we obtain a credit or bond rating before going to the bond market. And I'm pleased to report that on June 13th, Standard & Poor's reaffirmed the town's bond rating at AA+ with a stable outlook. Some of the factors that analysts noted in the report included the town's strong economy, demographics, and strong growth in real estate valuation. They also cited we have very strong financial management, consistent budgetary performance, and a strong long-term debt position. Two areas where they'd like to see us continue working on are our pension liability with Middlesex County and our OPEB liability. So on June 21st, we issued two series of bonds. The first series was for $5.81 million, and the purpose for these bonds are to finance the FY23 capital improvement plan, $1.2 million for the Chelmsford High School tennis courts, the restoration of that. Also, $575,000 to complete the parking lot land acquisition here in Chelmsford Center, and a portion of the of bonds for the Forum Ice Arena. And we received a total of 7 bids for that series, and the low bidder was Robert W. Baird and Company from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with a total interest cost percentage bid of 2.782662. We also issued $1,245,000 of taxable bonds for the Forum Ice Arena, and for that series of bonds, we received 4 bids, and the apparent low bidder is Robert W. Baird, again, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Their total interest cost percentage was 4.400523. And so those were the 2 bids. I know Bond Counsel, one of the things that we included in your packet this evening, it's a very long motion, but I would respectfully request that the board award the bid for both series of bonds to the low bidder, Robert W. Baird. And I believe in the past, this is up to the board, but because of the length of the motion, if you wanted to just state it as written or as prepared, it was prepared by bond counsel. If you'd rather not read the entire motion, but it's totally up to the board.
Is anybody not okay with not reading the entire motion? And I will take a motion.
Do you want the motion made by the clerk?
Doesn't,
You don't want me to read it, right? What do you do?
no, you can do an abbreviated version of it as
Are you
presented.
not allowed to do it?
Abbreviated version?
The way the motion was
I,
written,
Judge
I
Dixon,
declare.
clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Chelmsford,
No, it
Massachusetts,
just says I declare.
Town-
certify that at a
We have a
meeting of the
motion.
board held June 27th, 2022, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified, and at which a quorum was present, following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record and board in my custody.
And if you can read it if you want, Georgia, you can just say to motion to approve it as presented in the packet.
Okay, so I'll just say, I'll make a motion to approve this as presented.
Mhm.
We have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Do you have what you need?
Yeah, Madam Chair, to the right of you is a document that the clerk, George, has to sign, and then if George would sign that and give that to John, it'll be all set.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate the board. I know it's a large number of documents to sign, but bond counsel will appreciate that.
Grab that, John.
Okay.
Sorry. And the next matter to bring before the board this evening is, you may recall back in the town meeting in April, town meeting voted to authorize the disposition or sale of a parcel of land located on Summer Street. It was parcel identification number 84-334-3. Following that vote, my office issued an invitation for sealed bids for the sale of this property back on May 13th, and with a submission deadline of June 15th of this year. Notices of the sale were mailed by first-class mail to all abutters, and it was also posted on the town's website. And I'm pleased to note that we received 2 sealed bids for this property. The first bidder was, the name of the bidder was Thomas Abate, and the bid amount was $8,125.50. The second bid we received was from the Dave Flores Memorial Partnership, Jeffrey P. Clevin partner. The bid amount was $20,020. My recommendation is to award the sale of this land to the high bidder, the Dave Flores Memorial Partnership. And I would ask respectfully request that the board take a motion, vote a motion to award that bid. And following tonight's meeting, I'll work with legal counsel and the successful bidder to complete the closing process on this land.
And Mr. Clevin owns one of the adjacent properties.
Yes.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay.
So I'll make a motion to award the bid for the Summer Street property to the Dave Flores Memorial Partnership for the amount of $20,020.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you, John.
Madam Chair, our next presentation this evening is from Town Accountant Darlene Lucier. She's, as the board has requested, an update on the ARPA project funding status, and Darlene has prepared the report and will provide an overview this evening. Thank you, Darlene.
Madam Chair and board members. Yes, tonight I'm here to present our update of where we are with the ARPA funding projects that were approved back in January and February from this board. I did give you a spreadsheet of the expenditures that were approved and the cost of the funding that was approved, and then the expenditures. I don't have a lot to report. I mean, the ones that we had originally approved back in January, which was the operations for CCA. There was a refrigerator purchased for the vaccines for the Board of Health, air purifiers, the sewer pump station over at Katrina Road, the telemeter Zoom room here, the equipment. We did some HCA technical repairs, municipal ventilation study. The health educator actually, the contact tracer, we actually pulled that back. We didn't need that funding. I spoke with Sue Rosa, our health coordinator, and she's, they actually got through the State Health Coalition, was actually going to pay for any of that tracing. They're not doing a lot of tracing, of COVID any longer, so we don't really need those funds, so those would go back. And then the public health nurse. So all of those have basically been expended except for the CCA. She's still bringing that down. We have, at this point, have about $175,000 left of the $335,000 that was approved by this board. The other projects, most of them are all going to be like HVAC. And I spoke with Kathleen Canavan. She's going to be heading up these projects and sending them out to bid. A lot of them haven't even gone out to bid yet. So they're still waiting for bids to come in. When her and I were having our discussions, one of the things that she recommended that we do put additional funding aside for these projects. She's seeing about a 20% increase across the board on the capital projects that she's putting out to bid right now. So she knows that because these are labor intensive, and that the construction material cost for HVAC is going to be more than what was approved. So we're probably looking at about $650,000 additional funding that's probably going to be after these projects go out, get bid and approved. So I actually put in a column in there that puts in the 20% increase for those projects. The only project really that's been completed is just the air purifiers, those little the small individual units that are here in the town offices. The majority of the projects that are on the books are not. The two top ones, the mechanical school HVAC system and the town building HVAC, we do have an ongoing contract with Boston Mechanical. We're using them about 3 days a week to be doing some work. So those we are go ahead and expending. Those projects
I'm sorry, Darlene, which two line items
just at
are
the
you
top,
talking about?
right, and number 1 and 2, and you have the numbers on the side. It's
Okay, yep.
Yep, those we will not need additional funding for. Those are going to come in within the budget that was set for that. And we do have a contract signed by Boston Mechanical to do the work for those, and they're working about 3 days a week on those projects. So those, like again, all of those really won't be. If you go to the next page where we had that's approvals, those are the approvals on 124. Won't need additional funding on those. Those were the food pantry, the table of plenty, the PFAS work, the sewer, all of those. They're got contracts signed. We're already working on those projects. We won't need additional funding. Most of those are in process, if not already completed. So we have the total funding commitment is $7.9 million. The town was approved ARPA funding of $10.5 million. So the available balance is $2.677586. I think we are going to need about 600. I know it to date, 650. Could that change again, depending on when these projects get bid? She's hoping to have these bid by the end of the summer. She gave me a little bit of time frame, some notes on her time frames. And like she said, most of them should be bid by the end of the summer. So we should kind of, within the next month, a couple months, we should know better feel for what these projects are actually going to come in at. But at this point, she is bidding out the current capital projects, and we're seeing increases from projects that we have approved. And not all of the projects, but what she'll do is try to find funding within the additional, in the projects that she has to, if some of them are gonna be higher than what they actually got approved for, and that we've borrowed for, we can kind of move in between projects, and one might be over and one might be under. But we're gonna try to work within the budget that we're set with the capital projects. But with this, the only place we can go is to ARPA funding, so we should, my recommendation is to not spend down all of the ARPA funding on additional projects, people coming forward looking for additional projects, until we know what we actually have on the books to spend. Questions?
So right now, where you say the ARPA funding balance is 2.677 million, we should assume that's probably closer to 2.
2 million, right, I would think.
Is that how to, okay.
Yes,
So that's
correct.
okay.
Yeah.
And we would have to vote on to increase that. Is that what you're looking for tonight, is for a vote to add that or not?
I don't think at this point, I'd like to come back. I think it would be good for me to come back towards the end of the summer. And let's give some, I think we should really look at some hard numbers. Because at this point, the projects aren't even bid. We haven't started the project. If I thought we were going to be running these projects into a deficit right now, then I would ask you to vote on additional funding. But at this point, I think we should just stay where we're at. Let's see what happens when they actually do go out to bid. I mean, we could, if we went into a recession, that could change the number where, if years ago, I remember in 2008, people were looking for work, and then contracts were actually coming in less. So if things could change, I don't know. I'd like to see where we are when we actually do get the bids for these. So I can give you, these are just estimate numbers. I'd really like to give you some hard numbers.
Yeah, what's happening is Kathleen Canavan, Christine Clancy, our Public Works Director, Dr. Jay Lang, the Superintendent of the schools, Brian Curley, the School Facilities Manager, and we're meeting every fourth Friday of every month on these projects as well as the capital projects. And what as Deline's saying, what's taking precedent right now is the school projects, because school's out during the summer. So their focus has been pushing to get the school projects either bid in or underway, because we have that narrow 10-week window to get in. You'll be receiving a bid award for your next meeting on the 11th of July for the elevator at the McCarthy School, and you can see that's where all the focus is going on. The items left from the fiscal 22 capital plan, the 23 capital plan, and these ARPA projects. I think we're dealing with over $10 million in projects right now, and again, we're prioritizing the school ones. And then, as Darlene said, as time moves on, we'll be coming in with additional information on the HVAC products. The other one that is moving active is the HVAC at the McKay Library, because we want to get that reopened, and so that's also underway as well. So we should have some more information on that one relatively soon.
What caused the delay?
It's just a workload. You know, there's just so much that can be done, both physically and technically, on all these projects. These projects, we have until 2026 to bid, and 2026 to complete, and 2024, December 31st, to bid. And so we never envisioned that we would have these projects all bid by this summer, or even perhaps by the end of this fiscal year. This is our plan, and again, the priorities are really dealing with schools, and then air quality, and then the other things around it. So we expect this will continue, give updates probably for the next 6 months.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And then our next presentation, we're joined by Public Works Director Christine Clancy to provide the monthly Traffic Safety Committee report. Good evening, Christine.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Select Board members. So the Traffic Committee met on Tuesday, June 21st, and reviewed these items that we'll go over. So under current items, we looked at the Ledge Road, the existing location of the of the speed bumps. And I know there's been a desire to maybe add more, or also look at having be more permanent. So that is a current action that we're reviewing. We have a site visit this week, myself, the town engineer, and a representative from the town manager's office to look at where we can place some speed bumps closer to where the entry is to the Newport location, and also looking to see how we can maybe improve some of the existing speed bumps out there and make it more permanent. Another current action item is at a recent listening session, the community expressed a desire to add a crosswalk on North Road between the Town Common and the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. I know that previously there was a crosswalk requested at this location, and I think there was a study done a few years ago, and I think that study did say it wasn't feasible. It is something that we want to look at again. I know since it was brought up at this listening session, so that's another action right now that the traffic committee and DPW will look at to see if there's any options that exist to add a crosswalk at North Road. And just last item under current action items is we have this year's bottleneck reduction competitive grant is due this Thursday, June 30th. We have chosen to apply for the intersection of Richardson Road and Princeton Street. Right now, that is an unsignalized intersection. Previously, Mass DOT has looked and said a traffic signal is warranted at this intersection. The grant is up to $500,000, so we thought this would be a good location to apply for this grant. There are some, I guess in terms of the application, some things that they look for is proximity to schools. This is right near 3 of our schools. And also adjacency to state routes, and this is right at Route 3A and Route 4. So we think this is a good candidate. We hope to be successful, and so that is due Thursday, and we'll be submitting that this Thursday.
If we're successful, do we put the traffic light in, or is that done by the state? Is that considered a state road, where Princeton Street
That area
is
of Princeton Street's a state roadway. We would ask them to fund it, or we would look for grant funding to have that work done, because it's a significant expense to install the traffic signal at that location.
Sure. So currently, the state has recognized this as a need, and I did ask for their documentation just to see where it fell in their plan, and they don't really have it on a current plan. The only plan was potentially, I think when they put years, they look at future years, so they had it on potentially 2050. Not to say that is the year they're planning, they just don't have it on their 5-10-year plan. So we just thought, since this is really something that we need. Also, I know that the 400 units will be going in at some point, likely at some point in time, so that will also add some traffic to the area. So that was, but also really the high school. Speaking with Chief Ryan, I think he has seen accidents at this intersection, maybe not as much as in some other intersections, but he said it's pretty frequent, and unfortunately that often involves students just because of proximity to the high school.
I think it's a great location to start. It's needed badly there. So.
Sure.
I guess my question would be, how would that affect the possibility of it being on a tip? And because don't we have $250,000 to do that study to get it to the 25%?
Right. So there's 2 components. One was there was efforts to study from Princeton Street at Richardson Road, where we were, all the way up to Technology Drive.
Yeah.
And then the other factor that came in later was the redevelopment of 255 Princeton Street, UMass West Campus. And so as time goes on, we get the traffic signal. We try to do is envelope those 2 together and see if we can get a project on the tip to get this thing done in the years ahead. But the first step is, again, trying to get this off the ground with the grant funding for the traffic signalization, and then probably look to the tip program. And at the same time, as you know, we're working with the state down in Vinyl Square, which would be the other aspect of the $500,000 that we did under the competitive funding that were available as a housing choice community. So basically, we're sort of trying to move both projects along. And as you know, at the same time, we're also in the tip for the Chelmsford Street project, which is kind of related to that later in the agenda, where you've got 2 components again. The one being from the town center to Alpine Lane, which is the town portion, which is on the tip. And then there's also the state portion, which is from Alpine Lane to the intersection of Chelmsford Street, Golden Cove, and Stedman Street, which was part of the audit that we were out there 10 days ago examining work, but that's about 3 years away from funding. So, yeah, so you say we're trying to move these things along so that we can fall into, TIP funding and as well as state funding in the years ahead. But as you know, the critical thing is you got to get these things designed.
Right.
And to get on there.
Okay, so are there any other questions under current action items just before I move to pending?
So we had received, I don't know if it was an email or maybe I got a phone call about the amount of trucks out on Ledge. So I went up one day at about 11:30 and grabbed lunch and sat there in someone's driveway and watched it. Could the speed bumps be higher?
So that's something that we'll look at. I will go out there. We're going to measure the speed bumps. I also know those details. I mean, it can be higher. That does result in, I guess, sometimes
More noise.
is more noise, right? And so it's something for us to look at. So that's something that when we go out this week, we will really develop that plan. There's different details and different standards.
The width, is that part of the
The
consideration?
width is, yeah,
Because
so the longer it is,
ones are really skinny.
Yes, the ones that are really skinny and tall, or sometimes you find them more in parking lots. Those, if you're going more than 10, 15 miles, you really feel it. And potentially, I don't know if it would damage a vehicle, but it could be, it's more, it's noisy, but also it just has more, it's more impact on the vehicle.
Right.
If the longer, I know that we have a speed hump more so on Technology Drive, and it's wider. That I think is probably like 8 feet wide, and it's more of a gradual. So if you're going fast, you'll feel it, but if you're just going, normal speed limit, you don't really feel it as much. So I think we are looking at potentially putting something in a little steeper, but we also want to be, I guess, and this might be a trial. I guess we might put one and see how it goes, and it's something easy enough that DPW could put in and then demo if we had to. We did talk about temporary versus permanent, but I think we're just going to go with, because temporary, I think of more the plastic ones that you purchase and bolt down. So I think this is, we're just thinking more, some of the putting down an asphalt.
Right.
Yeah, what's there now is just, I don't know if they were higher and just got flattened out, but it really didn't, to me, it didn't seem like they were slowing the trucks down too much. It's just not a lot to it. But I like the idea of a hump instead of a bump.
So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
look.
good.
And it might be a trial effort. And I think I think there's 2 or 3 out there, so looking to put them closer towards where the trucks are entering, or maybe more. So that's something that we will be looking at starting this week, and it will be a little bit of a process, I think, to get to where we want to, but our goal is to really slow down the trucks. So under pending actions, so speaking of bottleneck reduction grants, so it is great news that we have received notification that we will be awarded the grant that was submitted last year at Golden Cove and Billwicker Road. We haven't received an official award letter, but we have been notified by email that we've been selected. And so the way this process works is that Mass DOT works to develop a scope to identify the scope of work, and that scope is then forwarded along with the award. So we anticipate to receive it, they said sometime June, July timeframe. I know they're working on the scope right now, so we don't have anything yet, but it's great news that we were successful at winning that grant. And under completed actions, so NIMCOG recently completed a study, and I know there was a letter presented to the select board tonight with some of this information. And so there are here, this was a truck traffic study that was completed in the month of May. And they're at 6 locations: Swain Road, Ledge Road, Dunstable Road. And some of the data does go back to 2017, so we can look at some trends going back to 2017 and recent. Also, this is also during COVID. But if you look at the AADT, which is the average annual daily traffic, that really doesn't change that much in all these locations except Ledge Road. Ledge Road does more than double from 2017 to 2022. But the study was really for the percentage of trucks, and the percentages did increase in almost all scenarios, significantly too. Just some, so along Swain Road, it varied from, it started out at 5.9%. There was one year 16.5, but now that's up over 30%. The truck traffic on Ledge Road has increased. So in 2017, it was 13.7%. This is the one road where also the AADT has doubled, and that has now 58% trucks. So more than half the traffic is truck traffic. So I guess given this study, I know NIMCOG is moving forward with a feasibility study just to provide recommendations on what short-term or long-term considerations could be done, outlining improvement options and also the barriers that exist with each of those options. So that study will be performed. Paul and I just talked last week with NIMCOG on this, and so once we have that study back, we'll be I'm sure we or NIMCOG would be presenting that to the select board.
Can I ask a quick question? Just in understanding these numbers, so when you say the truck traffic was 13.7%, that's 13.7 of the 350?
Yes.
That's 48, and then 58% of the 791 is 460.
Yes. So it's right. So Ledge Road, I think all the other locations, that percentage, if you look at the AADT and all the other locations, it didn't really change. So,
Right.
but it's Ledge Road.
But when you talk about, this is, it doubled or whatever, I mean, that's like 100 times.
Yes. So it's
100%,
50% double the. Yes. So if you take 13% of 35 and then 56%, if you look at the pure numbers, yes.
You go from 48 to 460 a day.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Significant. Any questions on this before? I think there was one more under completed. So the last is the Shared Streets in Space Grant Program. It is a completed action, but I think it might move back into current action. So it is completed in terms of we have heard back from the state. Unfortunately, we did not receive this grant. They did in their letter express some concern with the site distance related to the proposal of the crosswalk. And I think, or the also the use of the rapid flashing beacon. They did offer to have a debrief, and so we are actually this Thursday meeting with Mass DOT just to understand their review of this proposal and some of their their concerns and suggestions. How do we move this forward, or is there something else we can consider? So. It's completed in terms of the grant that's been denied, but I think it will remain on the traffic committee's agenda as just something to continue to look at. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then our final presentation this evening is from Jeff Owen, who's the regional planner for the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, and he'll be providing a report on the DLTA project that was the town received regarding the Route 129 sewer study. Good evening, Jeff, and thanks for staying by on the meeting this evening.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening. I'm Jeff Owen. I'm a regional planner with Northern Middlesex Council of Governments. I've been working with Chelmsford on this Route 129 wastewater study. Next slide, please. The project has been funded with the District Local Technical Assistance Program using funding from the Massachusetts Legislature. Chelmsford requested the study due to concerns about the town coming close to its maximum sewer capacity at the Lowell Regional Wastewater Facility, as well as an interest on Chelmsford's part about in developing and attracting more tenants to vacancies in the business area around Route 129. The study area for this project was the Route 129 Business Amenities Overlay District, where there's a map of that over on the right. It's the green outline. The study did not include all of the buildings in the overlay district. Next slide, please. It focused on vacancies and what would happen if those vacancies became filled with regard to additional wastewater that would be produced by the new tenants. So the study focused on 12 commercial buildings, 8 of which were had at least 10,000 square feet of vacancies for the previous 12 months, as well as 4 buildings that were expected to have significant additional vacancies in the coming months. This was a 2021 DLTA project. The DLTA program funds small projects and studies each year for the regional planning agencies to work with the towns and cities within their region for the past 14 or 15 years. And this was actually a 2021 study. So the data on the vacancies is actually November 2021 data. And I understand from talking to Lisa Maroney that the situation with several of these vacancies at these buildings is different now, that they have new tenants, and so these numbers are not reflective of what the current situation, but could be fairly easily reproduced using the same formulas and methodology that we used. Next slide, please.
Excuse me?
Oh, we got a question?
Sure.
Go ahead, George.
Isn't that, even though they were vacant, didn't we have an allocation for each one
Yes,
of them?
and
already?
that's what he's going to speak to, is how the allocation was and what happens if the use were to change.
That's right. Thanks.
Right.
So this is how the allocations are given out by the Department of Public Works. The department may accept estimated water flow rates provided by new tenants. For example, Thermo Fisher, which is actually not a building in the study because it is fully occupied, but it is a life science industry, which is one of the targets for the city, or I'm sorry, the town is working on trying to attract life science businesses to the area. So we used that as one of the benchmarks, but they estimated that they would require 18,000 gallons per day for their 62,000 12-foot square buildings, and they received that allocation from the DPW. That allocation is equal to 290 gallons per day per 1,000 square feet. That's significantly higher than other industrial users, including other industrial users, including research and development users, are allocated 40 gallons per day per 1,000 square feet if the DPW is not provided with an estimated flow rate by the tenant. The 5 industrial buildings that are included in the study have that 40 gallon per day allocation, and that allocation is based on the Title V, the state Title V standard of 20 gallons per day per person for industrial users with a cafeteria, and the DPW's approximation of 1 person per 500 square feet of industrial space. Office users are allocated the Title V standard of 75 gallons per day per 1,000 square feet. So industrial users, the standard is actually the lowest use of any of the buildings that we're looking at. They were there's 5 industrial buildings and 7 office buildings that were included in the study. The next slide, please. So to look at what would be changing with new uses moving into the area, we developed 4 scenarios to calculate sewer capacity for the changed uses. No scenarios were created for reoccupancy by industrial users receiving the standard industrial allocation because no additional capacity would be required if that type of use moved in. The first scenario is that current vacancies or the vacancies as of November 2021 become occupied by office uses. The second is that the entire building becomes occupied by office uses. Scenario 3 would be current vacancies becoming occupied by R&D users requiring the same capacity as Thermo Fisher. And the fourth scenario looks at what capacity would be required if all of the buildings in the study became occupied by users using the same capacity as Thermo Fisher. So this is a list of the buildings, square footage, the total uses under each scenario. As you can see, the 2021 allocation was 86,006 gallons per day. We don't need to go into too much of, I'm not going to go into too much of this table because it's summarized in the next couple of slides. But if you look at a few of the buildings that, well, that's fine, we can move on. Or, yeah, okay, so scenario one, if all of the vacancies if all of the vacancies were converted into office space, an additional 10,460 gallons per day would be needed. If all of the buildings in scenario two were converted into office space, an additional 17,000 gallons per day would be needed. A lot of the building, or as I said, 7 of the buildings are already office space, so there's no change with most of those buildings as it is. The change was mostly with the industrial would be with the industrial buildings converting to office. Third scenario, if all of the vacancies are converted to industrial users requiring the same capacity as Thermo Fisher, an additional 142,000 gallons per day would be needed. This would mean that there would be more than double the current wastewater allocation for the entire 12 buildings. And if the entirety of the 12 buildings were converted to an industrial users requiring as much capacity as Thermo Fisher, an additional 312,000 gallons per day would be needed, and that total allocation would be more than 4 times the current allocation. The next slide, please. This shows the same information in a slightly different format, but as you can see, it's significant if a significant amount of additional capacity would be needed for Thermo Fisher type heavy users of water. Not so much with the office space. And
Paul?
Yes.
Of these 4 scenarios, are any of them viable with our current state?
Yeah, what we're seeing out there now is, for example, we've got a use to convert an office building to a warehouse building, which would actually go the other direction. We also have a proposed use at Apollo Drive, which is before the planning board, for termination, which would actually conduct some on-site septic installation. And then the other thing to realize is, we're never going to be in a scenario where you've got 100% occupancy. I mean, you're always going to have a healthy or market vacancy rate of somewhere between 5-10%, depending upon where things are in the market at any time. So what this is showing is sort of the extreme situation that if you had everything occupied and everything converted, that's realistically not going to happen. So I think as Jeff noted earlier, the only time you're really going to have concerns is if you were going to a significant conversion to a Thermo Fisher type of level of user, which we're not experiencing, we're not seeing out there. And so that was the purpose of the study, saying, well, what is our capacity out there in 129, and what are we looking at? And I think the takeaway is that Evan Blansky, Lisa, and I, and in our previous discussion with Evan is that we're at capacity, but there really is a situation where it is a constraint on certain types of activities, i.e., if you had a Thermo Fisher type of life science activity come into the community in the future. So
let me just simplify my question. So recognizing that there's variables,
Yep.
if scenario 1 were to happen today, does that say that we can't accommodate scenario 1 because we can't get to the 10,000 GPD above our current allocation?
No, because this is a subset of the town's total flow and allocation. It would really depend upon where we are entirely in the community, because as I think George was getting at earlier, we have allocation reserved throughout the community for use. And we also have actual flows that we're monitoring monthly, and we're reporting on monthly. I think the scenario, the message under this and the message that we've seen all along, including the previous meeting's presentation, is we're at the limit of our capacity. And so what you're seeing is you're allowing for re-tenancy of existing allocation, but anything significant beyond that in terms of a major transformation just isn't possible. And that's why Christine is here tonight as well. She's seen this data and is obviously involved in our discussions on this. We really are up against the wall in terms of sewer flow with our permit with Lowell.
So how will you use this data? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Right. We're using this data in terms of moving forward. So, for example,
I know that.
No, but in terms of how it's working, when projects are coming before the planning board, and there are 3 right now, we're basically directing those people. You've got to obtain capacity. So, at Apollo Drive, they're before the planning board with an expansion where they want to put in high bay space, and they're basically being told, you've got to convert you've got to install a on-site septic.
Okay.
On River Neck Road, which is the whole dispute question and ongoing hearing, where they're now out looking for a tenant before they'll even proceed with the hearing, because the specific tenant may determine what sewer capacity they're going to need, whether it's a warehouse space, which we know is not popular, but if it is a robotics company, then we will come in and do the calculations of what's out there. In that case, again, they have a vacant parcel next door where they may have to install an on-site system, very similar to what you saw at the UMass West Campus, back in February's town meeting. And so those are the scenarios that we're dealing with out there on site. So what this is telling us from this data is it's reaffirming our understanding is that, look, what we have out there in the 129 corridor, this is a subset of the town's total capacity constraint, which is we're right up against it. In speaking to Christine Clancy earlier today, the preliminary indications for June is that we're slightly above if you look at it on a 1-month basis, but the whole capacity permit issue is on a rolling 12-month basis. So once again, we'll finish this fiscal year in 4 days. We will not have exceeded our capacity for the 12-month fiscal year period. And we're not in danger at this point of any rolling 12-month period, but we're right up against it. I don't know if, Christine, if there's anything you want to add to what we're seeing at this point in time. And as we know, there are other projects in town that we're in discussions with.
I think that's a good summary. I mean, we are at the capacity, so as applications come in, I mean, when there's a change in use, we look at, I guess that's where we're kind of stuck right now, and that's where we are spelling out that detailed process is how we review. Anyone that comes in, we ask look at the historical flows, but also what was the existing Title V calculations and what's the proposed Title V calculation. So if it's if it's higher, that is a problem, but there are some applications coming forward where there's a reduction. So it's a change in use, but it's a reduction. If it's an increase, we're kind of stuck with they have to look on-site treatment options.
And probably the most recent example is when we had the discussions with Charles Way about a month ago. They had 2 permitted sewer connections at that parcel of land. They're talking about putting more units, and we're basically saying, well, then you better go out and conduct soil testing to see if you can put septic on those properties, because at the end of the day, all that we can do under the current moratorium, which is likely going to be sewer policy, is going to be, you get the 2 connections, you can move them around your site in terms of logistically where you can get Title V systems, but at the end of the day, we can't permit additional septic beyond what's in the capacity reserved. And that's where we're at with our discussions again on, in that case of residential development, or in the case of Apollo Drive, a commercial development where they're coming in and putting in a small sewage disposal system to accommodate the expansion to large bays.
Do we understand what the delta is, like at River Neck, for instance, with the distribution center there that is being proposed? Mm-hmm. Do we have the delta between that and what the allocation was?
Yeah, well, in that case, if it was a distribution center, there really wouldn't be a problem, because it's going the other direction.
But that's a generalization. I'm asking specifics. Do we know what the delta is?
I don't have that one in front of me, but there was another warehouse proposal that is going before the planning board on Billrica Road, and they just submitted, I think it was a 64% reduction. I don't know the vote, so significant. And I think that is a question that is coming to us: is can they somehow like put that into a bank? But thing is, we have all these vacancies, and so with all these vacancies, we're not really at a point where we can create some type of commodity bank, because what if these vacancies become occupied? That's our reserve, right? There's no reserve. We're there.
I'm just curious how we're going to do this. And then the other part is, it looks like we're going to be faced with significant on-site treatment. Are we set up to be able to handle that?
Yeah, the Board of Health is effectively handling the residential ones that have come into place, and they're aware of the commercial activities that are being proposed. And so what's happening is every project
They've
comes in.
hired outside help for that.
Right, they've hired outside help, which is paid for by the applicant through that revolving fund. So what we're doing now is every project that comes in on sewer, it's being analyzed by Public Works, and reported to the planning board or for whatever development's being proposed. So therefore, nothing gets lost.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the process, the one that we will have to put in place in that case, is clean enough that, the applicants don't see it as a huge barrier just in time and in complications of trying to move forward into a permitting and potentially a build situation.
I don't think we're experiencing confusion with the concept. I think what we're experiencing is some frustration with the fact that there's no additional capacity to be garnered. So in other words,
my question is for an applicant coming in that's going to have to do on-site. Do we have a process in place that they can move through that process reasonably similar to what they would have with town sewer?
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that at Apollo Drive right now. We're seeing it, and we also saw it on Billrica Road. Two commercial projects where they've come in and they basically have been, this is what you need, this is what's allocated to the site, and this is what the additional that you'd have to do, or in the case of Billrica Road, it's actually less than what's there. And then again,
what are the two sites that's happening?
It's 290,
270.
270 Billrica Road.
It's right across from Alpha.
Right, that first building, where the concerns are about, it's been before, it's actually before the planning board right now for a determination of applicability for the site. And then the other one is Alpha Road, 250 Alpha Road, 150 or 250 Alpha Road, where they're before the planning board, the same thing, they want to construct high base space. They were just in at the last meeting for positive determination of applicability, and they've been working on this septic design. And then, as we said, the other one we're seeing on residential is just ongoing. Again, the most recent one being Charles Way, but we've had other subdivisions, Dunstable Road and other locations where people have had to install septic systems.
Have they been accepted finally, some of the...
that's between the Board of Health and, no, I don't think that's been resolved.
But I'm just asking because it's...
I don't know where that stands at the moment. I know it was rejected, and I don't know if they've replaced the soils or where materials or where that's at, but that's a construction issue as opposed to a permitting issue.
But is the goal of the Board of Health to bring someone on permanently instead of outsourcing?
No, they've not had those discussions, no. What they're seeing is they're seeing far more Title V septic system installations than they had envisioned, so they're quite busy with this in terms of residential.
That's more my question.
Yes, so that's how they're handling it. They're handling it through contracted services paid for by the applicant. But I can say on the permitting side...
I'm just wondering, though, if there's some lags because more and more of that kind of work, if that just keeps pushing it out, it's going to be counter to what we're trying to achieve.
I haven't witnessed that in the discussions that I've been involved with, as I said, on Apollo Drive, Billrica Road. When we have these site meetings, early on in the discussions, these issues get raised, and then they do into the design, and DPW's brought in, and I know Christina's already done some calculations. She's been here about, hey, this is what's allocated, this is your shortfall, and so forth. And we have one in the center that we're in discussions as well with.
It just may be good to stay close to these folks that you're outsourcing to find out what their capacity is, and if they're starting to get a lot, start looking for alternates.
Yeah, additional contractors if need be.
That's not our call.
What's that?
That's Board of Health.
Board of Health. No, I get that,
Yeah.
but it still needs to be done for the town, because we're trying to actually fill some places downtown, down on the corridor.
Right.
And the last thing we want to do is have that being the impediment.
Because eventually it ends up like it's our problem, even though people don't understand it's the Board of Health's issue, not ours. We have no jurisdiction, but,
It's the
you know,
town's problem.
you get
The town's
5 or
problem.
6 calls from different contractors. They've been turned down. These guys have been doing it for 25 years. and
Yeah. No,
I'm not, you know what
No,
I mean?
I know. I've received the same calls, George. And
I know.
and-
I'm sure you do.
And I'm-
Sure, we all do, but it's frustrating because, you know, and I think, you know, 129, I think the potential is so much greater than what I mean, you know, it's like they knock houses down. They can knock some of those buildings down up there and put a major, I mean, there's not a better location on Route 3 right now than 129.
And, well, that was a striking thing when someone proposed tearing down the office building on
That's what I was
129
thinking
and putting in
about.
a warehouse type of building. And, you know, that's the first time that anyone's made that leap of an investment to incur the cost of raising an office
Need a
building.
big hitter to
do
come in
that.
and take,
Exactly.
you know, like up on the hill even. I mean, the site and everything and the amount, it's all single-family buildings,
Exactly.
single-story buildings. They knocked them down and they went up 4 or 5 stories. I mean, yeah, they'd have to bring in some, they'd have to put their own private system in, but it
Exactly.
might be feasible for them.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
We got to make sure we're ready to handle that if that happens.
That's what I'm saying. And I think I don't think it's that far away, to be truthful. Anyway, that's what I know. What do I know? I'm a piano player. You know what I mean?
Anything else for Paul or Mr. Owen on this topic?
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your
Thank you
time
very
this evening.
much.
Thank you.
Before we do discussion items and town manager reports, we have at least 3 people in this room, in the Zoom room, who I think are just waiting for the 3 select board appointments. Does anyone have any objection to just taking that out of order, so they don't have to sit here for another 90 minutes?
No objection here.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Section 10, appointments, select board appointments. The first one is the Board of Registrars for a 3-year term. So we're filling one term, correct, Paul?
Yes, there's one term up, and in accordance with the statutes, you've been provided with 3 candidates from the Republican Town Committee for that term on the Board of Registrars.
And Curtis Barton is here. There was also a letter that you would like to continue? Yes, ma'am. Possible. Is there any discussion or questions?
Curtis being the only one that even contacted us, I would favor reappointment of Curtis.
I will take a motion if there's no more discussion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Curtis Barton to the Republican Board of Registers.
No,
To
to
the-
the
no, I don't
town.
think
I mean, sorry. Sorry.
Separate board.
He's a representative.
As a Republican member
Yeah,
of
as
the
the
Board of Registrars.
Republican rep member is the Board of Registers.
Second motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you, Curtis. And then the second and third select board appointments are for the DEIC committee. There is an unexpired 3-year term and a 3-year term. And we had asked the applicants to come because originally we had 3 people for 2 positions. And now one of them has dropped out, is my understanding, Paul, is that correct?
Yes, one withdrew, yes.
So Linda and Milo are both in the Zoom room. I would thank you for waiting. I would invite you to go ahead and say a couple words since you've been waiting and we asked you to come, so please feel free. Milo, I see you on the screen. Would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Milo Ransdell. I'm hoping to be a part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I did have a speech, and I misplaced it somewhere.
That's okay.
I wrote it down. I swear I did. But as for some words to say, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk, this opportunity to be here. I'm very excited.
Okay, thank you, Milo. And where's Linda? Oh, Linda, there you are. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I have been a Chelmsford resident for about 20 years now, and originally from Arlington. Just a little bit about my career so you kind of understand a little bit about my passion is I am in tech sales for a software company that develops software for the disabled folks. So hearing impaired and really any kind of disability for utilizing any application. So I've learned quite a bit about just diversity and inclusion. I do have a passion for it. So I'd love to work with the committee and the different events and education, and hopefully that will happen. So thanks a lot, and thanks for the time.
Thank you, Linda. Are there any questions for the applicants? Okay.
I will make a motion to appoint Linda Morrill and Milo Ransdell.
Well, we have to say which.
There's two. One is.
One is
lengths
an
of the term.
unexpired 3 years. I mean, it
24.
doesn't matter, you can
You-
always opt to keep going, but.
Do you
So-
prefer which you want?
Well, no, Milo attended our listening session and spoke very articulately there, despite the fact that he lost his speech tonight. But, so I guess I would support him for the full term, and then Linda for the 2-year term.
Okay.
I have
Are we good
no
with that?
opinion, or, like I said, I mean, there's nothing that says you can't re-up for another term, so.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
All right, so I'll make a motion to appoint Linda Morrill to the 2-year term and Milo Ransdell to the full 3-year term to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusionary Committee.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you both for serving, and thank you, Curtin.
Thank you.
Okay. So why don't we go back to the LGBTQIA listening session follow-up, because I see we still have members of the Diversity Committee here as well. I'm guessing that's part of why they're listening. Pat, you want to take this one?
Okay, sure.
I'm going back to agenda item 8 for the record.
Yeah, just, it was requested that we do a follow-up on what was discussed during our listening session last month, and, what might be done, what could be done in regards to the items that were brought up that evening. And so, I just wrote up half a page here. One thing that I noted from the people that did speak that night, almost everybody said that they were generally accepted in the LGBTQI community in Chelmsford. The operative word, I guess, being generally. We know that there's also situations where they are not accepted, so that's what we need to work on. So specific actions that were requested, encourage the use of the individual's preferred pronouns on, the email signature blocks, name tags, and Zoom names. And I notice more and more people are doing that. I don't know that that's anything that we can demand, but I would encourage people to do that just as a sign of respect. The gender-neutral bathrooms were brought up a couple of times, and I noted at the bottom that I think almost every public building now does have at least one gender-neutral bathroom, if possible. There are some maybe that just not feasible right now, but when it is, we do. Several of...
Want to say something, Paul?
No, I believe
okay.
so. I believe that's the case. Yeah.
Okay. There was a request from several of the attendees that night to reconsider the select board policy for flying the Progress Pride flag at town buildings. We've talked about that several times, so I think at this point we've reconsidered, and we may again. I mean, there's nothing to stop a committee from asking us, but at this point we have made a decision on that. The next two, the forceful denunciation of bigotry and hateful words and actions, including the destruction of the Pride and Progress flags, and being aware of the symbolism of not just official actions, but everybody's actions. I think it's important that, you don't just turn away if you hear or see something that's disrespectful to anyone, quite frankly. And I hope members of this board and this community will do that, will be more aware of what they're saying and how they're saying it, and what they're doing it and how they're doing it. The creation of a PFLAG group, I know one of the attendees did kind of offer to take the lead on that. I don't remember the name right now, so I don't think there's anything we specifically have to do on that. And then,
Just a note on that. I mean, I agree with you. I think that would have to be a citizen initiative to do that. I looked up the PFLAG organization, and it seems like there aren't a lot of municipalities that are creating their own chapters. There's one Boston chapter, and the municipalities, maybe that's what she meant, to form a
Yes.
group to fall under the Boston chapter, but...
And then celebrating Pride Month with an event in June, that would probably fall under the purview of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And as Charisse and Carly mentioned earlier, it's not simple to set up an event for many of, and they already do it right now, at least 2 a year for Juneteenth and for Peace Day in September. So, I mean, I can check with them, and they can check with us if that is something that can be done. But it's, doing something like that, you don't just throw it together in a couple of weeks. It generally takes some planning, so.
And I think the DEIC also tried to support what Merrimack Rainbow or Rainbow Merrimack Valley was doing as well with the kite flying.
Right.
So maybe there's an opportunity to collaborate with some of the existing things that are going on.
Right, and maybe it doesn't have to be a full-blown event like what the Juneteenth one was. Maybe just a kite flying is a way just to show recognition and respect for that.
Mark, were you going to say something?
Yeah, wasn't there also a request by, I think it was a Harrington teacher?
Well, okay.
For some resources to help them with training and...
Yeah, I mean, that
was a big one to me.
The comments that were focused on the school, I did not put in here because they are specific to the school. And I know, Virginia, you had said that the chair of the school committee had advised all her board members to watch that.
It may be, to Mark's point, though, I mean, since this was a select board-sponsored listening session, it may be appropriate to follow up with the school committee to say, hey, are you guys taking the ball on all those school-identified ones?
Because there were several,
Yeah, and I think it's a really important one because that's, that's help right there on the ground, right where it's needed, and they're clearly asking for some training to help them with that because they want to help, but again, without really fully understanding the right approaches, I think they're a little uncomfortable.
They being the school?
No, the folks.
Oh, okay,
They want to get involved,
sure,
but they want to know how to get involved properly. So I think that's an important one that I heard.
So, Pat, do you want to follow up to make sure it's not dropped on the other end, or do you want Mark or I as the school committee liaisons?
I can do that, sure.
You'll do that? Okay. Any other comments? Okay. So that takes us to the flag policy revision. At our last meeting, we had raised the question about the
Granite post.
deleting the word holiday and then making sure we're covering the granite posts that are used for messaging in the town. So those are the changes that you have in your packet. Any other questions or comments? And this came from Town Council to Paul, so.
Do we need to approve it, or?
We do, if we're ready to.
I guess my question, I mean, how would you define a public service announcement? I mean, that's, does it need to be more specific than that? Does it have to be something that is approved by this board? I mean, I don't know.
Where do you think it would raise an issue? I'm trying to think in terms of the,
It's like Vote
on the post.
Tuesday,
Yeah,
and there's
Vote
a market
Tuesdays
on the
and
common.
people coming back from the military service, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a runway on all those notices? I know Vote Tuesday we do, but when you want to post something on someone coming home, do you usually know like a month ahead of time?
We usually know a little bit ahead of time, yeah.
Because you could say, approve the message of banner. Additionally, the town may also continue to allow banners displaying select board approved public service announcements.
There's got to be an approval somewhere. There's got to be
That way you
something.
don't want someone to show up and go, I need it up for tomorrow.
Right,
You know.
or, yeah. And like I said, I mean,
Well, the flip side of that is how much do we want to get into approving general public service
I don't know how else
announcements?
to fix their concern.
Yeah.
Minimal.
Right.
You know?
well, I mean, it's fine as is, and then if
Like,
if
if
something
There's
does...
something
modified later.
extraordinary, I think
Yeah.
we apply our judgment and bring it forward.
I think it's general.
Are you comfortable with that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like farmer's market, Vote Tuesday,
I
people
agree.
coming back. If there's something extraordinary, believe me, I'm going to bring it here because we just don't want to create any kind of an issue.
Yep.
If that's what the board's policy intent is.
Okay, are we okay to vote? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the wording to the, this falls under part of the,
9-2 of the flag policy.
but which policy is it?
Flag
Nine-
policy.
9-2
The flag
of the
policy.
flag-
Oh.
Policy, right?
Yeah, but 9 to, anyways.
No,
I'll-
no,
I'll-
Select- The select board
What
policy.
There you go, that's what I was looking for. I was trying to think of the.
Why don't we
select board.
start the sentence again, Ken?
I'll make a motion to approve section 9.2, display of flags on town property for the select board policies as presented.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, next up, we had the town center listening session follow-up process. I asked to put this on just to make sure we don't let the ball drop. There were about a half a dozen or less, fewer suggestions that came up.
Trees.
So, yeah, I know Ken and I and Pat in the last couple of years have all taken on a listening session. I didn't know if Mark or George, if one of you wanted to take on the follow-up from this, or if you would prefer that somebody else do, but I wanted to just provide that opportunity. Or if anybody has any other thoughts on how they want to handle it.
Well, I mean, you want me to mention a few of the comments and...
This would be like, so for example, if the traffic committee is having a discussion about crosswalks, maybe getting in the loop on that, and just making sure that we've addressed all the comments.
Right.
We either say, we can't do everything always, right? So it's kind of like what Pat did today, or like what we did with the larger traffic matrix, going through and just saying, this is how it's going to be addressed, or
Right.
it's not something that we can address. And so I'm just asking for
I
a
think,
volunteer to do that.
I'll do it. I think Mrs. Clancy was here. She was there, and she was taking notes, and I think she addressed that a little bit after the meeting or something. She had some ideas. Because that was a big complaint about no crosswalk and everything. That was Susan Gates' biggest complaint, was it? No access to the...
Right, this would be going through all of them,
Yep,
working with
fine.
Paul
I
and
have
his
no
team on
problem
all
with
of
it.
them.
They weren't
You
that
okay with that, Mark, or you,
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
okay? Are you guys okay with that? All right,
You want to do it?
Oh, go right ahead.
We can do the trees together.
all right. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, I guess what we would do is whenever you're ready, we bring these back and say, these are the
You
recommendations.
know, it would be like we just talked about signs and everything, and then one of the comments was there were too many signs on the common. You know what I mean? So there's like a little bit of
Mhm.
whatever. My memory isn't all that bad, you know,
Okay.
all the time.
Paul, we're at town manager reports.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. A few items under report this evening. One is regarding the purchase of the municipal parking lot at 1 Billerica Road, 44 Central Square. It's my understanding that all the documents were essentially were in place this afternoon. I keep checking my phone to see if we are on record. I haven't received word from Counsel if we're on record with the Registry of Deeds, but all the essential documents were submitted. Money was wired from the town to Counsel's office for the sale and so forth. So if it isn't on record now, it will be by tomorrow morning, was the latest word that we had from Counsel today when they were picking up documents from our office, the HUD statements and so forth. So the good news is that appears to be completed. The next item is the animal control intermunicipal agreement with the Town of Tyngsboro. When the board approved this last summer, it was for a one-year period. In speaking to Chief Spinney and also speaking to Matt Hanson, the administrator in Tyngsboro, the agreement has worked out well. Basically, it's up for renewal. We're requesting your approval for a one-year renewal, and the only change to the agreement is a increase of 5% to the $30,000 fee for this service, again, reflecting increased costs for gasoline and also the additional compensation that will be provided for the animal control officer for this service. So I would seek the board's formal approval for the intermunicipal agreement amendment or extension for a one-year period for fiscal year 23 between the Town of Tyngsboro and Chelmsford for the animal control officer services.
So do you have any sense for how much time he spent with Tyngsboro?
I don't have detailed times. When this came up in the last several weeks, I checked with Chief Spinney. He checked with the animal control officer, Mark Cianci, and he said everything seemed to be working well. I think, Pat, it's less than a day a week, to be honest, in terms of how things are going out there, in terms of the demand on services. And more importantly, it's not impacting any response in Chelmsford. So again, it works out well. Tyngsboro gets covered, and then it offsets some of our costs, but doesn't appear to be negatively impacting our services.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve a one-year extension for fiscal year 23 to the animal control intermunicipal agreement with Tyngsboro.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Paul.
And then the last item under my report this evening, and I mentioned it earlier in the traffic discussions, as I noted 10 days ago, there was a team of, without exaggeration, at least 15 people from MassDOT, their consulting engineer, Jacobs, the town's DPW officials, where we had a pre-meeting a week ago Friday morning at DPW for the safety audit for the intersection of Stedman Street, Golden Cove Road, and Chelmsford Street, which we know is an accident of is an intersection of high accidents occurrence. And because the state is in the process of signalizing the highway interchanges on 110, which is 3 years from now on their scheduled projects, this gets enveloped into that. So they came out and did a site visit. I provided you with a copy of the presentation and data that went on in the pre-discussion. Then we all traveled out to the site for the meeting and then traveled back to DPW for post-site inspection. I guess the best way to describe it is there's some short-term, medium, and long-term issues on the intersection redesign and reconfiguration. I think the sense is you're not going to see anything dramatic come out of there, but there are some short-term things. For example, 2 of the 3 crosswalk buttons didn't work. Also, the line striping is faded. So those are like what you'd call short-term or immediate functions. Get those repaired, get them working. Even some signage things that as you're coming from Golden Cove Road into the intersection, there isn't a sign basically saying, yield on green, because it's not one of the newer traffic signals where you have the flashing yellow like we have in the center or at other locations. So in the short term, there'd be signage, and in the medium to long term would be new traffic signals with the flashing yellow. And then the long term is is there some way to would perhaps alter the configuration? For example, the on-ramp 495 southbound will likely be moved down towards Chelmsford Center a little bit further, a little bit away from the intersection, and then they're just looking to see how the width of the travel lanes in terms of how their alignment, because right now you're sort of traveling right at the opposite lane of travel, as well as providing sufficient truck turning radius. So I guess the important thing is to inform the board, but also the general community is, that efforts are being taken in the short term, but also in the long term, that this will all be improved at this point on schedule for 2025 as part of the signalization of the off-ramps to 495, much like what was done up on North Road for the interchange of 495 there. And then the other thing to note is, as I mentioned earlier, the following year on the tip is when the scheduled project would take place for the remainder of Chelmsford Street from Alpine Lane to the town center. That includes of resurfacing, sidewalks, bike lanes, as well as underground utilities called for into that project, because it goes into the center. And then the last thing we asked, and actually Chief Ryan, Fire Chief Gary Ryan chased it down, we also asked, well, what's the status of the bridge replacements on Chelmsford Street and Golden Cove Road? Because we've seen bridge replacements on both sides of that. We've seen them on Gorham Street, and we've also seen them on Old Westford Road. And I think rather surprising, at least to me, was neither of those two bridges are for active replacement. They're going to do some significant work, and you'll see it in the next year or so on Chelmsford Street, and you've already seen some work on that in recent years in terms of the decking and so forth, and nor is there any significant work in terms of replacement work for Golden Cove Road, which sometimes you drive under it, you kind of wonder if you've looked up with that. But anyway, we're as you can see, we're trying to take a comprehensive approach to the safety in that area. So I just wanted to make the board and the community aware of that, which again, it was a big undertaking where people saw a bunch of people in yellow vests out there in real time in the intersection. So that's my report this evening. The next item I have would be my appointments, since you've completed the select board appointments. And I'm seeking the appointment of Connie Donahue to the Age-Friendly Implementation Committee for a 3-year term. And Mike Rigny has submitted an application to fill a vacancy on the CCA Advisory Committee. So that would be for a 1-year term expiring 6/30/2023. And then we have 2 applicants, new people to join the Tree Committee, which are welcomed and needed, and perhaps, like I said, we can get discussions on them about the trees in the center and other locations. That's Peter Spahn for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025, and Ian Farley for unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2024. And then there are reappointments to the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee. Carrie Meikle, yeah, Dr. Meikle, yeah. 3-year term ending June 30, 2025. Steve Roberts for Permanent Building Committee reappointment, June 30, 2025. And Brian Zazzuto for a 3-year reappointment to the Tree Committee for June 30, 2025. And that should complete the appointment process for this month and for the annual reappointments.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager's appointments as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you.
Yep. So next up, we have appointment of legal counsel. We currently have BBHS as our legal counsel, with KP Law as labor counsel and counsel for elections. And they both have 1-year appointments. Is there any discussion?
Could I just I'd like to bring something up. I'd like to see if, I've had 3 or 4 people call me about this, and I don't know why they called me, but they did. And they would like to have made a presentation. I have, no problem, but I just wonder if it could maybe continue what we have right now for another 30 days, and, maybe invite some of these people in or whatever, like we have in the past, and listen to them, and whatever. Maybe nothing will come out of it, maybe something will. And the other question I had, somebody asked me, and I didn't know the answer, was, like we got a letter about the fee being increased? I mean, is that, when we bring somebody on, do we sign a contract or whatever, or we agree to a fee at the time, and then we hold that all the way through, or?
Yeah, that's generally how it's been in the past. They tell you what the fee is when you've appointed them. And then when the fee changes, they give you notice.
And we don't have to approve that or anything like that, right?
No, I mean, that's why they provide you with the notice, and in this case, it would be on July 1st. If they're providing services for you, this is their fee.
Didn't we just go through the interview process last year? I mean, I understand, periodically now, we do bring people in to reevaluate if we need to change. But it seems like it was just last year we did that, from what I recall.
I don't think we did it last year, but it wasn't, I know we did it, maybe we did last year. I think it was at least 2 years ago, maybe not, I don't know.
My recollection is it was brought up last year, and then we waited 3 weeks.
Nothing happened.
And nothing came forward, so we voted.
Well, I'm okay with just renewing what we have. I mean, I've not heard any issues like George has, so I don't know what those issues are.
I didn't say anybody brought any issues up, they just wanted an opportunity to present their case.
These are lawyers that want,
Pardon?
these are lawyers that want to do work for the town?
3 or 4 people.
What's the process on that? Do we get their names and just send out a request for proposal? Is it Christina?
Or we could bring them in, whatever we want to do.
I mean, I don't see any harm in, I mean, if we just continue the way we have for 30 days, and we get some time to think about it, I don't, let anybody say we're being fair, whatever.
Do you just want to post it and see if these people show up, or do you have the names and addresses?
I have some names, but it isn't just, I don't know if anybody else has any names or not. I have 2 or 3, for, one's out of, let's see, out of Wakefield, I believe. One's out of Walpole, and I forget what the third one's out of. Got it written down. I have their numbers and everything, but I just wanted to bring it up first before I get in any conversation with them, so. I didn't see anything wrong with it.
I think the fundamental question is, does the board want to seek out alternate counsel? When we make other appointments, do we take anybody that wants to apply at the outset? I don't know what your interview process has been in the past. Because there hasn't been one in 4 years, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, typically it's been, reaching out to people that might be interested and see if they wanted to come and make a presentation or submit a written proposal, which we've had written proposals that's been no more than 2 years ago.
I don't know.
So there is no process or convention even?
We can do
that
whatever we
follow?
want, there's nothing specific that we follow.
Not like we do with the auditors or whatever, it's just.
But it was similar to what we did with the auditors. I mean, we reached out and sought firms that had municipal experience.
We did with what?
When we did the audit firm, remember, when we did the auditors, as George just mentioned, we went out and reached out to people who had similar communities, municipal experience, and brought those people in for interviews. That was how we did it when we first did it, 6 or 7 years ago. We went out and had interviewed 3 firms who were major law firms for across the Commonwealth for communities similar to Chelmsford, and then the second time, was sort of similar. I think it wasn't just anybody who was interested in applying. It was sort of that sense of municipal experience and communities similar of size and scope to Chelmsford and in Massachusetts, and so there generally tended to be 3 to 5 major firms who did that, and we interviewed 3 of them, initially, That was when we went from KP Law to Myrick O'Connell for labor. And then since then, we've gone back to KP Law. And then similarly, we went from KP Law on the general counsel side to Paul Haverty's firm, and then looked at, since then. So, and then the only other change was the one when Tricia came in on the elections request, and then again, she brought forth a request for a municipal law firm that was, covered major communities across the Commonwealth. But that's basically where the process has been in the 15 years that I've been on serving with the community.
Well, I'll make a motion that we put it off for 30 days and see what happens.
But do we do outreach, or do we, that's why I'm asking what the board would want to do.
I mean, I don't know anything about the people that have called George, so I mean, if it's,
But I mean, it doesn't have to be just the people that contacted me. There must be other people. I'm not saying that he's I'm just saying that if they contacted me, I'm just putting it out there. So, and if somebody else has somebody to bring in, they bring it in. And then if we like them, we like them. We don't like them, we don't like them. But, it's only 30 days, but,
So what would you do? You'd put out a formal request for proposals and then invite, including our current councils, and invite them to come speak to us?
They would, sure.
Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you would need to give those names to Christina or somebody to
Right.
get formal proposals if that's what the board wants to do.
It's going to take more than 30 days to do that.
Yeah, I know.
You want to put up for 60
What's it
days?
What's it gonna take?
You're at July 1st. You probably would have new council appointed probably by Labor Day, because you get a notice out in
For a term-
mid-July.
for the term
You get
that ends-
you
for
get
the term that
applications
ends
in.
Got a lot of
Yeah, you
vacation
get
time.
applications in the end of July after a couple weeks, and then you schedule the interviews in August, and then you have a transition and a new person, probably you're talking Labor Day.
Yeah, a lot of vacation time and holidays and everything else.
Labor Day by the time the transition's done?
No, by the time you're probably, if you make a selection in August, you probably have a transition done in September, yeah. And you're gonna need that because you're going to town meeting in October.
So, yeah, if,
In the meantime, the current council is in limbo.
Well, I mean, they continue whatever they're working on, you know what I mean?
I'm just saying, what's their incentive?
No.
It would seem to me if we were gonna do this, we should have done it, started
3
it
months
2 months ago.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have any calls from months ago, Mark.
Oh, I get you.
So what would your recommendation be?
Me, to renew.
What was it, Mark? I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Renew.
you. You know?
And work the process next year if the board
Yeah.
wants to look at it
Exactly, yeah.
again?
But I think we should do it in advance, I think it is a good idea to, like we do with auditors, to rotate and look at other options, but not every year, Unless there's reasons.
Pat, what's your thought?
I'm fine with that, what Mark said.
Ken?
I mean, I hear what George is asking us to do. I don't really know who they are, if they're qualified, or... But it does make me a little nervous to run this out until the end of the summer. But if that's, I'd support if that's what he wants to do.
Well, I mean, the other alternative is to renew with a definitive plan to either relook next year or say we're going to put together the policy that says how often we look at council. Because this is the second or third year in a row, I think, that I've been here that it comes to this time at the 11th hour and we're questioning our own process.
Well, I do think we should have something in writing about when it should come up so that, we're not essentially hanging someone out to dry here for a couple of months.
Right.
I don't think that's the right way to go. Unless there's cause, then it should, if there's some cause and we need to discuss it, then we can make up our minds, but we should do that sooner than.
Paul, did they ever give a 2-year contract?
No, they won.
No, can you ever?
You can, yeah, you could do 3 years, 2 years.
When we first changed over, we did like 1.5 years because of the timing.
I remember you guys talking about that last time.
So what do you want to do,
So we
Virginia?
It's not up to me.
Make a motion and see how many votes you get.
We could take it on as a goal next year to just get a better definition around this.
I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that there are alternatives out there or that other people are interested. If I were the existing council, I don't think that I would want to be treated with a 3-month extension without a really strong rationale behind it, and I don't know what the rationale is right now. Other than George saying people contacted him.
I don't personally know the people, to be very honest with you, but they came very well recommended, but I'm sure most of them come very well recommended. I don't know, but I just brought it out there, that's all.
No, I appreciate it.
And, you can take a vote. If you want to extend it or not extend it, that's up to you, or whatever. I don't know. I just brought it up.
What's that?
I think what the two choices that are in front of us right now are George's recommendation to extend them for 3 months and bring in other people, or extend everybody for another year and put a deliberate objective in for this board to decide how they want to handle council alternatives and on what frequency, or whether we want to bring people in for interviews and look at that process starting in January of next year.
Well, it sounds like I can see what the board wants. So, I'll make a motion to extend it for 1 more year, and then put a process, and then make a goal to the board to put a process in place and how we're handling this, and starting the process much earlier in the year, like, May 1st.
Does that process need to be part of the motion? I guess would be a question out.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we give them a 1-year extension.
To everyone?
To everyone.
You want us to just state the 3?
So you have, you want it by name or just the law firms?
Yeah, the law firms.
So it's KP Law, I don't know Paul's official.
Yeah, KP Law as Labor Counsel,
Right.
and as Town Clerk's Counsel.
No, as Elections Counsel.
Elections Counsel, I'm the Town Clerk Elections Counsel. And then the other one is Blattman, Bobrowski.
It's not town clerk. It's
Elections.
Elections and
that's-
Board of Registrars.
Board of Registrars Council. And then the other one is Blattman, Bobrowski, Haverty, and Silverstein as General Counsel.
So you got, I'll make a motion to give a 1-year extension to KP Law, Elections Council, and BBHS.
And Labor
Second.
Council.
KP Law for
Labor and
Labor
Elections
Oh, and
Council.
KP Law for Labor.
And BBHS for general.
So you want me to give a definition for each one. So I'll make a 1-year extension to KP Law for Labor Council, BBHS for General Counsel, and the Election Law lawyers.
KP Law is the election.
You just said BBH's election.
Why don't you just say as it's currently structured?
That's
What's, yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to give a one-year extension to the current labor contracts as structured.
Current council, not just labor.
I mean, geez, I keep screwing this up. I'll make a motion to approve the current council to the town as it currently exists for a one-year extension.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mark is seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I stay.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed?
Stay.
You're abstaining? So we have 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Thank you, George. Okay, next is meeting minutes. We have the select board open session prior to executive session. Are there any amendments before we take a motion? Okay, if not.
I'll make a motion to approve the select board open session prior to executive session meeting minutes from June 2nd, 2022.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Next is the select board regular session minutes for June 6th. Are there any amendments before we take an motion? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the select board regular session meeting minutes from June 6th, 2022.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And next we have the June 13th listening session minutes. Any amendments? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the select board listening session minutes from the June 13th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
It's 4 in favor and I abstain. I have an announcement on determination of releasability of executive session minutes. The minutes for April 27th, 2022, segment 3 were approved for release, and the minutes for April 27th, segments 1 and 2 were held not for release. Next up, we have liaison reports. Mark?
I'm all set, thanks.
George?
That's it.
Ken?
Just want to wish everybody a happy July 4th. And hopefully you come out and show up for the parade, turn out downtown, make sure you watch for your Minutemen, and be safe.
Great, thank you, Ken.
Are we road races that day? Ken?
Yep.
The John Carson road race.
Are you gonna run in that with your uniform on?
No.
Pat?
Yeah, a couple of things, a couple of recent passings to note. Strat Dukakis, who was a longtime member of the Finance Committee and also a longtime representative for Chelmsford at the Neshoba Tech School Committee, passed away about a week and a half ago. And Jim Harrington, who was a longtime town council, passed away last week. He was also a library trustee and also a member of the Neshoba Tech School Committee. And also this past weekend, Virginia and I were at Friendship Park at Roberts Field, where Girl Scout Troop 67512 unveiled a new free little library for anybody who needs some light reading. Any time of day or night, you can go to this little library and take a book out to read. So congratulations to the Girl Scout Troop. It's definitely a nice addition to the park.
I didn't know those little libraries. There's a website you can go to. They're all over. There's a few of them
Yeah.
all over
Oh,
town.
there is, yeah.
And
They're all
you
over
can
the
look to
place.
see where they are. They're kind of neat where they placed them.
I just have a couple things to add. We have 2 more Eagle Scouts who were had their Court of Honor ceremonies this weekend. Ian Blanchett and Ethan Metzler from Troop 74. Ian developed for his Eagle project, constructed 2 benches at the charter school, the Innovation Academy Charter School in Tyngsboro, near their nature trail and their frisbee golf court. And Ethan's project was the installation of the 4 percussion instruments outside the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, which is a really neat display. So congratulations to Ian and Ethan. And then the Select Board received a letter from Lynn McSheehy from the CHS Alumni Association. Just a general congratulations to everyone who earned scholarships during their recent recognition. They didn't have an in-person event this year, but I just wanted to extend a congratulations to the recipient of the Select Board Scholarship, who was Katrina Janakos. So congratulations to everyone and to Katrina. And it is 8:14 p.m. I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn
No.
to executive session and not to return.
For-
Done yet.
For the purposes of,
Oh, for the purposes of the strategy with respect to collective bargaining and the review of the executive session minutes.
Second.
Roll call, Mark.
Aye.
Pat.
Aye.
George. Ken.
Aye.
And I vote aye.